So we'll get some numbers on the stock FAL trigger before we even touch anything, just to see how it compares before and after. £8. 8 pounds. 10 pounds. 9 pounds. 9 pounds. So on average, 9-pound pull, which is really heavy, and it's not a good trigger pull. Very creepy, very heavy, not good. So the very first thing we got to do is take the lower off of the upper. So first thing we got to do, separate the two halves. Pretty simple. Flat blade screwdriver. You're just going to unthread this. Half out, and it'll just kind of pull apart like an AR. Now you can set this aside because we're not doing anything on this side. Next, we're gonna take the pistol grip off the lower, which at least for this DSA Voyager is a 3/16 Allen. Set that off to the side. Next, our trigger guard comes out, just like that. That's just held in by the pistol grip. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is remove the hammer spring and its little assembly there. You may want to, if you have one, you may want to clamp the lower receiver in a vise, because this is going to want to go absolutely flying. It's under a lot of spring tension. So you just put a screwdriver in there and just gently pry up. There you go. Just like that. You get your three components here. Set that to the side. After that, we're going to remove the safety selector, which is really easy. You just flip it up past the safe position, and that should just pull out. Just like that. Next, we can take our hammer retaining plate out. Yours might be a little bit sticky, but if you just pull it towards the front of the gun, you should be able to pull it out. Kind of like a shepherd's hook on an AK. Then the hammer pin comes right out, along with the hammer. And then the trigger pin. You may want to put your thumb over the top of the trigger here, because you'll have the disconnector. Want it to come up. Do that. And then on the bottom, take out the trigger return plunger. Just like that. So next, what we're going to be doing in order to actually try and smooth out and lighten up this trigger pull a little bit is we're going to be working with these parts right here. Anywhere we see contact marks, friction marks, we're going to try and smooth that out with some very fine grit sandpaper, you know, 1000 plus grit, very fine. We're not actually really not trying to take any material off. We're just trying to smooth out some surfaces here, interacting surfaces where there's friction, metal on metal. The other big thing that you can do that it really does quite a bit actually is on the plunger. This is actually the trigger return spring. A lot of guys will take this spring, go to the hardware store, and find a spring that's the same kind of diameter and length or a little bit longer, but is a thinner wire, and then you can cut it to the same length, and that will actually do quite a bit. And I may pick one of those up to demonstrate that as well. But for right now, we're going to be doing a lot of polishing. So I've got some 1000 grit right now, and we'll see what we can do here. And already it's feeling a lot smoother on a lot of these surfaces, just with going back and forth with some 1000 grit a few times. It's actually already feeling really big difference right there, just on this couple of faces I'm working on. I'm actually gonna probably leave it there. You can always come back and do some more. On the back right here is a small patch. Down the bottom of the hammer here, just a little bit. I think I'm going to call it there for the hammer. Just give a little bit more on the surfaces once more. And I think I'm just going to call it there and try it. Next, I'll do the hammer strut. I'm just, on this one, just going to do the little ball end here, which is where this swivels inside your hammer here. Not a super easy way to do this. Seems good. The rest of this, It's just where the spring goes. I'll give it a little bit. Just so there's no hang-ups where this for the spring to catch on. And I'm gonna call it good there. Set that over here. Next, our trigger, which on this one, just gonna be this one surface right here, I believe. I think we'll call it there for that. On this piece here, we're just going to do these two back pieces right here. And on our trigger return plunger, just going to be the ball end here that rides in the back here. This one has a little bit of a flat spot. This one might be a lot quicker if you were to chuck this in like a Dremel or something, and then, you know, hold up your polish to it, but I'm just going to do it by hand. I think I'll call that good for right now. Alright, now we can reassemble it. First thing we're going to do is actually put the receiver upside down. And we're going to put the plunger back in for the trigger return. I put a little bit of ballistol on there. There we go. That's better. I may actually need to put a little bit more on there later. Now flip it back over. Flip it down. We're going to put our trigger in. And anywhere where there's these little ball pivots, I'm actually going to put a little bit of ballistol on to lubricate it. Set that in there. Need to push the plunger, the return plunger back. And then pivot the trigger down. There. But now you gotta back it off just enough. Just like that. Now for the real struggle. Just like that. Nothing to it. Now we can put the hammer back in. I'm gonna put a little bit on that. There we go. And we can put our retaining plate back in, rotate it over, get our selector switch, face it up. Come on, there we go. Then we can push it over. Now we can put our hammer strut back in. Put a little bit of ballistol or whatever lubricant you want on the end there. Just slide it right in like that. Push down on it. Push forward and push down. You want to be careful because this can go flying. There we go. And we are all good to go. Just going to give it a little bit of lubricant in here. That's probably too much, but give it the best chance at having a decent trigger pull. Just going to put a little bit on that surface there. Okay. Now we can put the rest of it back together. Now we can put our trigger guard back in. He's just going to kind of sit like that and get clamped down on by a pistol grip. It's again 3/16 Allen, at least on the DSA Voyager, I'm sure. There's different ones out there that might be different bolts for that. Okay, that's nice and snug. And now we can mate the two halves of the gun back together. You can take the bolt out for this. It doesn't fall out and break. That would not be good. Okay. I'm actually going to snap the two halves back together. Then we can take our pivot pin. This side is going to go in on this side, just like that. That screws in there. Hold the other side while we tighten it down. That's probably good enough, actually. Yeah. Now, put the bolt carrier back in. Go. Feels a little bit better, but I guess we'll find out for realsies. 7. 7. 8. 7. 7 and 13 ounces. 8. If you average 7 and 16 ounces. So a little bit of an improvement, not necessarily in weight, but I do notice an improvement in just the trigger feel. It's a lot less gritty. So next I am going to actually put in a lighter trigger return spring, and we will check that. Alright, so I took a trip to the hardware store and got a couple of springs that are very similar to the regular recoil or trigger return spring. I cut them to length with a Dremel, and we'll try each one of these and just see how they affect the trigger pull weight. And I'll put up on the screen the spec for these in case you want to go and buy them. They were 79 cents each from Ace Hardware. So I'll go put this all back together with one of these, and we'll try it and take it all apart, put the other one in, and try that one, and we'll see what happens. Alright, so we got the larger of the two springs I bought in there, and we'll do a test now. 5 pulls in an average. 5 pounds, 3 ounces, which is, that's already kind of, I'm a little bit speechless. The difference that 79-cent trigger return spring made, like, that is amazing to me. Like, it went from being horrible to just an average mil-spec AR trigger now. £5 pounds, 6 ounces. Unbelievable. 4 pounds, 5 ounces. £3, 8.8 ounces. So on average, we're down to 4 pounds, 10 ounces, which I think for this thing is like perfect, honestly. And I am going to take it back apart and try the even lighter spring I got, but I have a feeling that the larger of the two is actually the one I'm going to stick with, because that is pretty much perfect in my opinion for this gun. Yeah, that is so much better. Well, I got the lighter spring in there. However, unfortunately, it appears it's just too weak to properly return the trigger. And I have a feeling that some of that is probably the internal diameter of the spring being just a little bit too small, so it's not really, I think it's binding on that actual plunger right there. But just for science, we'll take one reading off of it just to see what kind of difference that made. Take a couple maybe. Yeah, 4 pounds. £5. So actually, I don't think it's really made much of a difference over this one. It's just added the extra malfunction of not actually properly returning trigger spring. So I'm going to call it there, and I'm going to take this thing back apart for the 4th or 5th time and put this one back in. But yeah, I am pretty satisfied with going from 8.5 to sometimes 10 pounds before the polish down to 7.5 to 8 pounds with the polish, and then 5 to 5.5 pounds with this 79-cent spring. So I am really pleased with that. I would, if I had to do this again, much rather spend the 79 cents on another spring rather than $15 on the Falcon Arms or Falcon Ink spring kit, or $160 on the jarred trigger, which is already of questionable reliability and quality. So yeah.